Hi there, welcome to the 90th episode of Under the Radar. I am very happy to finally be in the 90s. We are 10 episodes away from breaking 100. And I couldn't be any more pleased that I'm finally wrapping these up. And before I break into today's band, I wanted to again point out the Red Tape by Slave to Servant is now available on CD in my web store, samswansonmusic.com/store. You can get CD, poster of it, also all the other Slave to Servant releases, including Escape Babylon and Singularity, as well as releases by my old bands Dorm Life, Midwest Blue, Boom Juice, etc., etc. There's a lot of merchandise in there, overstock that I have from, spanning back to at least 2003, 2002, some of that stuff. But anyway, just wanted to make sure I let you know about that. Also, you can download the Red Tape for free at slavetoservant.bandcamp.com, or you can also find it on my new Bandcamp page, which has all of the albums that I've ever released, samswanson.bandcamp.com. And I've got everything there. I look forward to be releasing one of those albums physically finally soon. It's out for pressing at the moment. But anyway, in the meantime, I appreciate your support. It is very helpful. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Now, this band that I'm going to cover today really goes quite far back with me. Specifically, I would say, I think 2003 was when I met them. At least the founding members of the band. They were in a band called Another Tragic Story. And I know that Midwest Blue, we played with them because they booked us to play with them in Spitalfield at, I think it was St. Peter, what church was it? Escapes my memory. If you go back to Spitalfield episodes, you'll see a flyer. And there was a church in Barrington that we played the basement of, and Spitalfield played, and so did Another Tragic Story. They also were one of the first bands, I think, that we ever played with in my band Dorm Life, when it was just a little side project, a little acoustic thing. I know we played a private, like a party at somebody's house with them one time, played a bunch more shows in Wheaton at the Grand Theater, and then there was later, once Dorm Life was, I took that project seriously and released the first record, the Red Album, or AKA It's Not Me, It's You. Another Tragic Story played with us. And then recently, I even talked about in the Boom Juice episode, I talked about how Sleepless in Chicago was actually a title of one of their songs on one of their demos that they were handing out. And so, I want to make sure that I mention Another Tragic Story as they're the precursor to today's band, a band called the Outbreaks. And before I bust into the music and all the history of the Outbreaks, I did want to point out again the founding members of the Outbreaks were in Another Tragic Story, right? So Petey on bass, and then the two Trezar brothers.
We're the Outbreaks. You're listening to Illinois 88.9 WEIU.
Scott and Tim, both. Scott on drums and Tim on guitar and vocals. And when I first met those guys, it was a similar sort of circumstance in that it reminded me of when I met John Fawcett and Brian Fawcett back in the day when I was in high school. And I that goes all the way back to the first episode. I know Mike Newman, their old band, and then of course Johnny Bodacious and the Bad Attitudes. But the brothers Fawcett, and so we had the brothers Trezar here, and it was cool to watch them cooperate with each other and collaborate as siblings in their bands. And great guys. Have nothing but wonderful things to say about Tim and Scott. So Another Tragic Story was a little bit more pop punk emo, for the times. And I believe they wanted to start something that was just a little different, like all of us did, when we disbanded our bands, like when Midwest Blue broke up, I did Dorm Life. When Bob left the Audition, he formed the Hush Sound. A lot of us, Retro Morning, when they broke up, they became This Is Me Smiling. A lot of us wanted to create something new. Or how about Dr. Manhattan is another great example of that. Out of the Ashes of Musket Arm and another band, So in the vein of a lot of the bands that I just mentioned, D-Man, Dorm Life, This Is Me Smiling, The Hush Sound, I would say that they also were expanding and being more, I would say the direction that the Outbreaks took was a little more classic rock influence, and maybe even some progressive rock, but not as much as, I would say more like pop, progressive pop. And I think one of the members that came into the band, Drew, he was really big into older music, like 60s rock and stuff like that. And so adding Drew to the lineup and then adding a piano player named Kevin, adding all those influences from Kevin and Drew into an already, 3 members existing from another band, the Outbreaks came about with a completely different sound, sounding nothing like Another Tragic Story, which is beautiful. Not that Another Tragic Story wasn't good, but it's so cool to watch them progress. And Tim, for one, his vocals, my gosh, how gritty they get in here. And then the use of falsettos and just really great vocals. I was highly impressed by his evolution as a singer. Anyhow, so let's bust into this one. This is a self-released CD, pressed by the band, not on a label, but I know they worked on this for years, and it got released in 2009, probably around the time that, Boom Juice's record was coming out and all that. They produced it mainly by themselves, and by themselves I mean that Tim Trezar, the singer, recorded pretty much everything at his place. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he was using Sonar at the time, because that's what Brian Peters was using for Dorm Life and for our projects. And I remember being over at his house, him showing me some of those sessions. But Another Tragic Story had recorded material with Brian Zieski from Gallery of Carpet, who did, The Academy, The Hush Sound, The Skywriter, and some other bands that I've covered in this series. And so they went back to Brian just to do the drums, just to get that drum sound. I mean, drums are a very tough thing to record, I think. That is always the thing that I end up outsourcing when I'm making music these days, especially, is, we'll find somebody with a good studio who can track the drums, Yeah, so Brian at Gallery of Carpet did the drums, and then Tim did everything else. And Scott even did the art on this, not only drumming duties, but art duties, and it looks beautiful, I should say. So let's go ahead and get into these songs. I think it's appropriate that I start with a song entitled From the Start.
Searching out in places, babe, when you're lost and cannot say, will you walk, will you run alone, searching out in places, babe, should've known this from the start.
can hear that classic rock influence. I can't make my mind up specifically who I would say I can hear all in it, but I can hear Beatles, I can hear The Who, things like that. And all the keys in it almost give it a little bit of an ELO vibe at times. But even on a modern tip at the time, I would say that one of the bands that sort of reminded me that at least that last song, maybe some Queens of the Stone Age, vibe, which is again a retro kind of rocked out version of classic rock. Yeah, just I wish I could play side by side Another Tragic Story versus this, but you'll have to just take my word for it unless you can find one of their demos online. The next song I'm going to play here is easily the most experimental one, a song entitled Woof. Definitely the most aggressive song on the record, in my opinion, and I would say that the keys in it are it's very like Zappa, right? Like Frank Zappa-like kind of thing going on. It's kind of chaotic. Very interesting composition. Okay, I'm gonna only play one more song off of here, but this is my personal favorite. And Dorm Life, we played a bunch of shows with this band, especially toward the end of Dorm Life's, career. Anyhow, this song is entitled Any Envy.
Goodbye, El not in today. No working or play. Hanging on by stools with drunken fools. Conversations of sin. Help creak, they sneak, they creep, they scheme. Say love me. Voodoo in gold is sold, it's sold for a brim. Rose path. I'll never be the same. Black blood in my veins, in my veins. I'll never be the same. Black blood in my veins. And I lust for the game.
great record, great engineering and self-production. I'm trying to think of even like what bands were around at the time that even sounded close to this. I know that I think Scott was really into like TV on the radio at the time, and I'm trying to think of, there were some bands on Vagrant. What is it, like Future Heads, I believe, like those kind of bands that were coming out maybe would have fit on a bill with Outbreaks, or Outbreaks would have maybe benefited of opening up for. But instead, they were playing with my band, Dorm Life, and gosh, we did a lot of shows toward the end there. Some of those shows were bar shows, and they paid decent money as opposed to what we were normally getting. And we ended up funding the recording of Mustard is the New Ketchup, our final album, thanks to people like Tim, because he would split it with us, and then his band would learn all the covers, and he would still let us like keep like half of what the bar was going to give us. And I mean, I remember one time, I think Outbreaks played as Pink Floyd, if I'm not mistaken. I think they played like The Wall or something at a bar in Barrington. But yeah, those shows helped me so much. And truly, I would say when I had questions about recording, I remember Tim coming over. I remember seeing Scott a lot on the Metro train when I was in transit to work and back, and or to the studio to go record Boom Juice releases. I'll say this also, Petey, the bass player, is an amazing producer. He does a lot of DJ type production, does a lot of remixes. He's kind of got his own SoundCloud, I think, somewhere, and very, very talented. I really like the direction he's gone. He has a great taste in like hip hop production, beats, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, just want to again say shout outs and cheers to my friends in the Outbreaks. Feel free to go on Discogs and see if you can get a copy of this self-titled full length. I don't know how many were pressed. I'm guessing maybe 1,000. But yeah, happy hunting. In other news, I will be adding a new item to the store soon, a CD of The Illusion of Money, which is a documentary film that was made by Canadian filmmaker Leonard Ulrich. And I was hired to compose all instrumental work, which is a story in itself. But I did that from 2014, all of 2014 pretty much I was composing. And then I released the soundtrack in 2015 with the intention, like it went up on Bandcamp but never saw the light of day and on a physical. But I had the artwork created, and I've been sitting on it for years, and I just had the itch finally to go, I really want to put this thing out, and I have some reasons to do so. So I'm only doing 500 copies. It's the only score I've ever made, but I'm pretty proud of it. I think it stands on its own 2 feet, and for my first time doing instrumental music like that, not so bad. So if you want to check that out, you can go on my Bandcamp page, and I have it there. You can download it for free if you want, or you can buy it if you want to. Soon enough, I'll be adding CDs to the Bandcamp page and to my website at samswansonmusic.com/store. I will have more news soon. My band with Mr. Aaron Tate, which I think I've only briefly talked about like 2 episodes ago at the end of an episode, which thank you for listening if you are aware of that. If you're not, Mr. Aaron Tate, ex-drummer of Minus the Bear, and I have a band called Take Over the World. You can find us on Spotify. Right now we are only doing covers, and I've only got 1 song as of this moment that has been released with him as a cover of Turned Out, but I think in the coming days our cover of D. Barge's I Like It will be coming out, and I'm much more proud of that one than I am the Turned Out, even though I think Turned Out is good. It's just not one of my favorite songs, whereas I Like It is my vibe. So anyway, I will hopefully be back with news on that project soon. But yeah, stay tuned for more episodes. I'm excited to cover Boom Juice's Crunk in Public cassette only release from 2010 in the next episode. And I will be back soon. Thank you for your time.